Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1406.
Do it with passion or don't do it at all.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
What's the worst thing for your car's interior? No, it's not that milkshake the kid spilled in the back seat. It's the sun. Harmful UV rays cook your automobile's interior hour after hour when it's parked outside, even on a cloudy day. What's the solution? Covercraft sunscreens. They protect your dash, seats, and interior finishes from those damaging UV rays while keeping the interior temperature tolerable, even on the hottest summer days. No more painfully sizzling seats and steering wheels for you. They unfold quickly and easily install, stay where you put them, and are custom patterned for an exact fit. The foam core acts as a cooling insulator, and you can get yours in different colors and finishes. And they even fold up easily and store under your seat or on the floor. I've used Covercraft sunscreens for years, and they are a fast and easy solution that protect my beloved cars when they're not in the garage. Learn more and order yours at covercraft.com. Want to protect your entire vehicle? Get a car cover from Covercraft. They have those too. That's covercraft.com and tell them Mark sent you. Hello, automotive enthusiasts. I'm revved up and so excited to introduce today's very special guest, calling in all the way from Hasselt to Belgium, Serge Vanbockryck. And I'm going to have you say your last name because I totally butchered my Flemish this morning, didn't I?
Vanbockryck is the way to pronounce it around here.
You do it much better than I do. Thank you, Serge. Are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for being here today. Serge started his career in the late 1980s as a journalist and photographer, reporting on endurance racing for European newspapers and magazines. In the mid-1990s, he left journalism for public relations and marketing, working in Formula One, the World Rally Championship, and at Le Mans, with brands including Marlboro, Lucky Strike, and Toyota. Since 2000, Serge has been European PR coordinator for GM's Cadillac LPM, Corvette GT, and Chevrolet WTCC programs. He is having some fun around the world at some great tracks. He's a regular contributor to British monthly magazine Racecar Engineering and German monthly Sport Auto. And he is the co-author of the official Porsche Rennsport Reunion program. That's cool. I've been to most of the Rennsport reunions. Today, he is here to share his latest book titled Works Porsche 956, The Definitive History. It's the second title in publisher Porter Press International's Ultimate Series. So, Serge, I've told our listeners just a little bit about you. Would you take a brief moment and share a little more about your career and a very obvious passion for automobiles and racing?
Well, when I was a kid, I always wanted to have to do something with motorsports, and a racing career as a driver basically went out of the window in 8 seconds when I asked my dad to pay for a racing school, and he said, no, and that was the end of that. So, yeah. And then the next best thing, or the next easiest thing, was to get into journalism and to start covering it. So I joined a local newspaper here, on the general information desk, and then kindly asked them if I could cover some motorsports over the weekend, to which they agreed because they had nobody else doing that at the time. And we had this old racetrack nearby, some 5 miles down the road, which was pretty popular then. They just lost the Grand Prix to Spa, but they still had the German Touring Car Championship and some other great races. So I did that, and from there, basically things evolved. Got more and more involved in media, and then one day in the late 80s, I decided to cover the WSPC, the World Sports Prototype Championship, as it was called at the time, now WEC these days. And from there on, I packed my bags and got my cameras and my typewriter, as it still was in those days, and traveled around the world and covered the whole WSPC circuit for various newspapers and magazines. And quite frankly, I haven't looked back yet.
Yeah, it sounds like a really fun career. And for those folks out there listening who love motorsports, the idea that you can have a job going to races and covering races around the world. Yeah, you can. Here's a guy who figured it out. Well, as we continue on your journey, I always like to start by asking my guests for a success quote or a mantra. This is some kind of saying that's been instrumental in forming your life and your success. It's a nice way to get the inspirational tire smoking here on Cars Yeah, since you're around race cars a lot. So Serge, take the wheel.
Well, the one quote that I just recently saw, and which quite covers what I've been doing for the past 35 years, is when I was at my personal trainer, which I have now since the past 50. I have to have that to try to get back in shape. And he has it in big on his wall, and it says, "Do it with passion or don't do it at all." And coming from a former Olympic athlete, fourth in the London Decathlon Olympics in 2012, basically what does it for me, and that's what I've always done. I wanted to get into sports car racing. I wasn't too really interested in F1 or anything else, although the walks of life took me there from time to time. But sports car racing was my thing, endurance racing, and I just stubbornly stuck to it, and it hasn't always been uphill, but I stuck to it. And the same thing with the book I've now done, on which I've worked for almost 30 years, is just I did it with a passion. I was still doing it with a passion, with a certain goal, which could be far away or nearby. There's really no time frame for any of the things that I'm doing. But yeah, do it with passion or don't bother doing it. There's no such thing as a half job or half work. And that's basically what carried me through motorsport, and which got me to where I am now, I guess.
Well, absolutely. And there's a great tie-in here with racing, because if you do anything in racing halfway or not with a full gusto, chances are, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be in the front of the line and winning at the end of the race. So I love that whole concept. There's been a lot of people on the show before who've talked about, you know what, do it right the first time or don't do it at all, because it seems like there's always time to redo it if you mess it up or you didn't go in full bore. So that's a great quote. I love it. Let's talk about this passion you have for cars. You talked about asking your dad to pay for racing school, and he rolled his eyes and said, "I don't think so." But let's go back in time and have you share a pivotal moment in your life when you knew that you were indeed a race car guy.
I think that moment was in 1977 during Le Mans. And I don't know how I got to listening to the French radio station. I think a friend of mine, one of his parents was French. He might have told me. But I clearly remember sitting in my room, age 13, and listening to a French radio station who covered Le Mans, but like regularly. In Belgium, you had it like most of the time with the hourly news flashes that they gave like a 30-second info on what was happening in the race. And that was, of course, the Le Mans edition where Hurley Haywood and Jürgen Barth had issues on the Works Porsche 936, had fallen back to like 41st overall or something. And then they started climbing back up the order. Then Jackie Hicks had troubles with his Porsche, blew the engine, was moved over to the Haywood Barth Porsche. And then the three of them raced all through the night, flat out in rain, to bring it back up to the front with a clear mission. We were either we win this thing or we break the car. And that was something that got everybody. And Jackie Hicks at the time was national hero here in the mid-70s in Belgium. And that had everybody going, of course. And on the radio, the French radio station I was listening to was called France Inter. They were going absolutely mad about it, reporting how the car was making progress during the night and how they clawed back their deficit from the Renaults, the French Renaults, who then had issues and everything. It was very exciting. And in these days, no live TV coverage on Belgian television here, of course, but the only thing you had was the radio. I remember listening all night on my tiny little radio, not to wake up anybody in the house. And then listening through the night and listening how Jackie Hicks drove like 3.5, 4 hours non-stop during rain and brought the car back up to first overall. And then, of course, they had the famous issues at the end where they blew a cylinder, which they had to disconnect. And then Jürgen Barth took the car back out for its final 2 laps in total agony with a stopwatch attached to the wheel. So he didn't go too fast and not too slow because the car would only last another 2 laps and not 3. And then they won the thing. And from then on, for me, it was like, yes, motorsport, that's where it happens, you know.
Incredible. You had me on the edge of my seat. Just an incredible race. I'd forgotten all about that. I got to meet Jackie Hicks, and I'm working on getting him on this show. He's a little hard to track down. He's still moving fast, even at this point in his life. But I got to sit with him for a little bit at Rennsport this past year. Mm-hmm. I talked to him a little bit. And, of course, Hurley Haywood's been a guest on the show a few times. But, yeah, incredible story. Fantastic. I can see how that would hook a 13-year-old into motorsports for sure.
Yes, it definitely did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about a big challenge that you faced along the way, or maybe even a big failure The most important thing of this story, though, has to do with the learning lesson and how you came out in a positive way on the other end. So share a story with us, would you?
Well, I think the one story that was pivotal in my life was when I had a cardiac arrest on the eve of my 38th birthday. And miraculously survived that, and then went to the hospital for lots of examinations and everything. And it took them a while to find out what had been the cause. And I found out that I had Brugada syndrome, and Brugada syndrome has been discovered back in 1986 by a Spanish cardiologist called Pedro Brugada, who fortunately works in Belgium. It's like a little defect to the heart, but the less popular name, or the more popular name of the thing, is sudden cardiac death. So you don't know that you're born with it until the lights go out, and it's usually too late. So I went to see him, and he said, "Well, yes, you got the syndrome that I discovered a couple of years ago. So we'll have to implant you with a cardiac defibrillator," which I have had since. But the one thing, what it did is it gave me time to reflect on where I'd been and what I'd done before it happened, and what I still want to do afterwards. So it has learned, or it has taught me to not to waste time on things that are not worth losing time on, and to get forward and to separate the important from the non-important, and basically have a more positive look forward, if you like, on life in general and on what I'm doing in specific. So that's, wow, I think, the most pivotal moment in my life. But also that there is life after something like that, because I was racing at the time in touring cars in Belgium, and I've continued afterwards until I had kids, and they, of course, ate away my budget.
It's funny how they do that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's where the sponsorship money went. So basically, that's the one thing, to not to lose too much time on things not worth losing time on.
And thanks for sharing a really personal story. I'm so happy that you came out on the positive end of that, and how fortuitous that the Spanish doctor that discovered that challenge was in Belgium. I mean, how fortunate can you be? But
yeah, absolutely. Because I was diagnosed in a different hospital than the one that he works in. So, and a friend of mine who is a doctor at the first hospital, he said, "Oh, Professor Brugada, he works in the other hospital in Brussels. Go and see him, at least for a second opinion." So I went there, and and he said, "Well, we have to have surgery immediately." And this was in March 2002 or 2003 it was. And he said, "Well, we have to have surgery immediately. I won't let you go. We will, set the operation theater up for you tomorrow morning." I said, "Well, sorry, but I have to go to the Sebring 12 hours next week, so I promise I'll be back." So he was quite reluctant to let me go, but he did let me go. So I went to Sebring, and after Sebring, I had the surgery.
Serge, you remind me of my dad in a way. He was in Nepal and was going to go on a hike up to one of the early or lower base camps of Mount Everest. He wasn't going to climb Mount Everest, but he wanted to go up to one of those areas. And he had a heart challenge at that time and went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Well, you've got to have a bypass surgery. You've got, clogged arteries." And he said, "Well, can I wait and do that after I hike up to this base camp I'm going to?" And the doctor just looked at him like he was nuts and said, "You won't make it to the base camp. You need to go and have surgery now." So a little bit of a definition of you and my father's attitude towards life. Well, I don't want this to get in my way. But the bigger story that I think you shared here, I think is very important for those of us who have not had to go through a near-death experience. And that I love the way you say this is, don't waste time on things that aren't important. And I've always believed that time is our most valuable asset. Yeah. And I love that. And it's a bit cliche when people, and I've had plenty of people on this show that have been race car drivers that have nearly died in accidents, come very close, and people, even a guest of mine that was contemplating suicide and had a change of heart, and thank goodness. But you know what? It's so important, and that's a great lesson to share with everyone listening today, is don't waste time on the stuff that doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Focus on
it's the one thing you can't buy in life. It's time. Anything else you can buy. You could even buy love probably by the hour, but time you cannot buy ever.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're done listening to this great show with my guests here today, make the best of your day. Go out and do what you want to do. Don't waste time on all the other silly stuff. Let's have a little bit of fun and talk about the first vehicle in your life that was really important to you. What was that car? And maybe share a memory you have about that ride. Maybe it was a bike.
No, well, actually, the first car I bought was a tiny little Opel Corsa, Opel was, or still is, a German manufacturer, which at the time was owned by GM, General Motors. And that was as far as my dollar stretched, basically. So I had this tiny Opel Corsa, which was the kind of cars, they still make them, but they've gone, obviously, even smaller cars are now quite big, but at the time it was so small you didn't get into the car, you just put it on. And that was the car that I used to go to all the races all over Europe. So I think it did like 250,000 miles on it, driving around Europe, covering the races. I think the only part left originally of the bodywork was the roof. Everything else has been dented and replaced, and accidents and scrapes and this and that. But it took me without a single mechanical hiccup at all those 250,000 miles. They had a 1.5-liter turbocharged diesel engine, which I believe was originally made by Isuzu, a Japanese brand, which was at the time also owned by GM. It took me everywhere, flat out all the time. In those days, you didn't have that many speed cameras yet, especially not in France or in Spain or Italy. It was quite fun. It was the car that basically helped me launch my career, if you like, in covering the World Sports Prototype Championship.
Oh, cool. So Opel Corsa, that was kind of a little hatchback, right?
Yeah, it was a tiny two-door hatchback. I nearly sat in the back seat because I've got long legs, but it did the job and got me from A to B and C and D without any issues at all. But also I was glad that after 6 years I could like sell it and then buy something bigger, because at some point you want to be able to stretch your legs more or less.
I think so. Yeah, you're a tall guy. Well, how about seller's remorse? Is there a vehicle you've owned and let go that you really wish you had back?
No, not really. I've always sold my cars back to the dealers when I bought the next one, and then I've had company cars for a while. So there was just, this is your company car, live with it. But no, I've never had any remorse about selling a car back to the dealers, not at all.
You're a fortunate guy. I've had a lot of trails of tears here on Cars Yeah, people that have, including myself, that'll let cars go. Well, I would love to talk about this new book. That's really why I wanted to have you here. My friends at Porter Press International introduced us and said, you should really talk to Serge. This is a great book series. I'm a huge Porsche fanatic. That's my mark of choice. So this book, Works Porsche 956, The Definitive History. Tell me a little bit about why you selected this subject matter and what our readers could expect when they add this book to their library.
Well, I started it more or less around the same time I started covering sports cars. The 956, of course, was the car, the ultimate car in the Group C era, which ran from 82 till 90. And by the time I got started as a journalist, it was like almost past its heyday, the 956, and then its successor, the 962, which was also very successful in the US on the IMSA trail. But I also thought it was not only the most successful car, but also the most elegant looking. And I bought a few books that had been published in 85, 86, 87 even on the subject, but they always stopped there, although the car was still going on and quite strong in 88, 89, 90. And on an average WSVC grid, you had like 40, 45 cars. Half of them were Porsches, because Porsche were the only ones who sold their cars to privateer teams like Saab and Mercedes never did, Jaguar never did, Nissan, Toyota sometimes did, but mainly in Japan. So half of the grid were Porsches. They all had great liveries, great sponsor liveries. I'm sure you can remember the pink Italia Sports on the Lloyd Porsche, or obviously the iconic Rothmans colors on the Works Porsche. Also Canon cameras had a car. Repsol, the Spanish fuel company, had a car. You had some great liveries in Japan. So they looked good, they were elegant, and they were very, very successful. And I thought, well, why didn't I do a book on these cars when they have finished racing? Because then in 88 or 89, it was said like at the end of 1990, Group C will end. There will be a new technical regulation, and cars will have to run with 3.5-liter F1 engines. And that would normally have been the end of the 956 and 962. So I thought, well, if I start in 89, I can be finished by, let's say, in 2 or 3 years, and I will have covered all the cars and their history, the racing histories and everything. And basically, pick up where all the other guys left off when they published their books in 85, 86, or 87. Because for some reason, nobody ever did a follow-up on his or her own book. But that, of course, was without thinking about the longevity of Porsche racing cars. In 91, the SWC, the Sports Car World Championship, was then called, had 7 new cars on the grid at the first round in Suzuka, whereas 1 year before they had 36 cars on the grid in Suzuka. So they had to fill the grid again with old, quote-unquote, old Group C cars, which were again mainly Porsches. So the Porsches continued for another few years, and then they continued again in Le Mans. And then the rules changed, and the cars had to be open top. So some smart people chopped the roof off their Porsches, and they had open-top 962s. And then when the regulations called for GTs, Porsche themselves decided to turn the 962 race car, or somebody else, Jochen Dauer actually did, turn the 962 race car into a road car and then convert it back to a race car. So all of a sudden, the 962 reappeared as a GT car in Le Mans, and won Le Mans in 94. And then one of the open top cars won Daytona in 95. So it just kept going on and on and on. In the meantime, I just kept collecting data and information on cars and stuff. And then at some point I thought, well, why don't I make this the ultimate book and have like everything that can be said or found or written about these cars in the book. So the initial book then covers all 202 cars ever built and has the full story of each championship with race reports of every single race, not only the popular ones, the World Championship or IMSA Series or the German Series, but also the smaller championships wherever there was a car that showed up. It's covered in the book. And this book now, Works 956, basically covers the story of the 1982, 83, and 84 World Championships and the 10 cars that were used by the Works team, plus an 11 chassis they used for F1 engine testing. So it's 800 pages, and it only talks about 10 cars. But it has the full story. The introduction, if you like, is the history of Porsche Motorsport, how Porsche Motorsports came about, how they started as a company in 1948 after World War II. So those introductory chapters already, I think, 160 pages or something. And then you get the whole development, all the wind tunnel testing, the engine testing. Everything is in there with lots and lots of pictures from the Porsche archives that I was fortunate enough to be able to use. And then it goes into the story of the actual racing with race reports and all the technical stuff on the different cars. So you can, in the data spec sheet, if you like, per chassis number, you can find which gear ratios they used in Silverstone and why, and what they did to the car in practice, and again, what they did to the car between practice and qualifying, between qualifying and race. And it has all sort of nerdy details to it, like fuel consumption figures per lap and per qualifying session per car.
Wow. Incredible. So, I mean, the detail in this, the book and the books is fantastic. And I think of those Porsche 956, even the Group C cars, there was, back in those days, it was right before I got married. I was married in 84 and they were racing those cars at Del Mar, around the fairgrounds there. And I remember I was doing graphic design at the time, and I had a client, Jay David, and he sponsored a car that was raced by John Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely. I met John last weekend.
Yeah. And in fact, that car last year, I think, went up for auction. It didn't sell at the time, but I just remember thinking back in the day, because Jay David, this was before he was arrested for his Ponzi scheme in investing.
Yeah, exactly.
And ended up in prison along with Bernie Madoff, that kind of a thing going on. But I remember him getting me tickets to the race and getting to go and sit with them and go down to talk to the team and so forth. I thought, man, I died and gone to heaven. And I'll tell you something, my wife has never really been into cars, but I talked her into going with me, and she was so excited at that race. She goes, I think I like this racing thing. You know, being there and seeing the car, and that track was pretty slow. I mean, it's running around a fairground. It's not like watching on a real big track, but definitely fun. Well, I'll make sure I put a link on Sergey's website page here on the Cars Yeah website where you can get these books. And this book in particular, it's absolutely fantastic. If you love old Porsches and racing, this is a book that you want to have on your shelf. Well, up next is the last lap. Before we put the pedal to the metal, let's say thank you to today's Cars Yeah sponsors. When you want proven performance, there's one brand that's been around since 1938. That's Edelbrock, building the finest American-made performance products for the street and track. Edelbrock's products are designed and dyno-proven to deliver maximum results. Edelbrock has thousands of made-in-the-USA performance products for all makes and models. From their new AVS2 carburetor and innovative ProFlow 4 EFI for your muscle car or truck, to superchargers for your daily driver and more, visit Edelbrock.com to check out the latest products for your ride. And when you're ready to check out, enter Cars Yeah in the coupon code and get 10% off your order. That's Edelbrock, automotive performance since 1938. You take care of your cars, But who takes care of your investments? Tune-ups aren't just for engines. Updating your financial plan is important too. Your GPS may take you from A to B, but it won't help you on the road to financial freedom. For that, you need a good co-pilot and a very trusted advisor. Chris Kimball, CFP, is just the man for the job. He'll guide you down that road without driving you crazy. For over 25 years, Chris has helped people just like you and me with their financial planning and investments. With a master's degree in financial services, he is eminently qualified, and he's a car guy too. Learn more at chrisvkimball.com or call 866-ON-A-PLAN. Securities through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Member FINRA SIPC. CK Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp. Are you looking for a way to get your products or services into the ears of thousands of automotive enthusiasts around the globe? I can help. This is Mark Green here at Cars Yeah, and I'd be honored to be an influencer and ambassador for your brand in a unique and personal way. 5 days a week, thousands of subscribers and listeners enjoy the Cars Yeah podcast and website. Contact me today and I'll show you how at mark@carsyeah.com or connect with me through the Cars Yeah website at carsyeah.com. All right, Serge, we are back, and I have a bit of an introspective question for you. I want to get into your head a little bit here. If you woke up tomorrow and you were a vehicle, if you were actually manifested as a car, not what you want to be, but how you perceive yourself as a car, what would you be and why?
That would probably have to be a BMW or an Audi estate with a big turbocharged diesel engine. Solid does the job, still fast when it has to be, but usually solid especially, that's probably the thing. It's probably like me, you know. I just go. I'm not very fast, but I go and I get there and I get the job done.
It done.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. Nicely said. Well, we are entering what I call the last lap. You've been to many tracks. You know what that means. The white flag's out. I'm going to fire off a series of questions and ask you to give our listeners some very quick blips of that BMW throttle. So here we go. What's the best automotive advice you've ever received?
I think it has to be when I was racing myself in touring cars. I was fortunate enough to one year do the Spa 12 Hours with Rob Huff, who later became Touring Car World Championship. We had some issues, and he just you know, I was bitching about some issues that we had on the car, and he said, just drive around it. And that's basically...
drive around it.
Yeah, and that's basically, you know, a good piece of advice. And also, whenever I have issues now with the next book I'm doing or whatever else I'm doing professionally, if there's an issue, we'll just drive around it for a while and we'll see if we can fix it later. But don't stop and stare at the problem. Try to continue and find a solution along the way.
Wow, great advice. I like that. I'm going to write that one down. Would you share one of your personal habits you believe has contributed to your many successes over the years?
I think as a journalist, I have natural curiosity. I always want to know things, and I want to know why they are the way they are, or why they do what they're supposed to do. It's that, and also attention to detail, which has come along as I was writing researching this book for 30 years now.
Detail indeed. Oh yeah, my
exactly.
gosh.
So, and always wanting to know more. You know, I'm the kind of guy who just is watching TV without really watching it, and all of a sudden I see a documentary on National Geographic or Discovery or something, and I'll watch it, and then I'll keep on watching. All of a sudden it's 4 a.m. I probably should have gone to bed. But I have this natural curiosity for things. I think that's something that also helps me in doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I love that concept of stay curious. And one of the things that disrupts me when I'm watching movies or anything is I start thinking about how did they do that shot? Like, who's behind the camera? How did they back up? And then all of a sudden I miss the whole show because all I'm thinking about is how did they get the shot done? So I have to go back and rewind and watch the movie again to get the plot. So curiosity, it's good. I also said it killed the cat, but I think it's great to be curious. Do you have a resource that you'd like to share with our listeners that you find rather appealing?
Well, since I still work in sports cars as Corvette's European PR guy, sportscars365.com is my favorite website to get information from what's happening around the world in sports cars. It's a relatively new website. I think it's been around for 3 or 4 years, but it's really, really well made. They've got information about everything. So that's like my one go-to source for information on what's happening in my professional environment.
Very cool. Sportscars365.com. Nice. I've had a few other guests recommend that site as well. Now, if I could arrange for you to sit down and have a drink or a meal with anyone in the automotive or racing industry, living or deceased, who would that be?
Well, I've just returned from 3 days at the Goodwood Revival. I've never been before, but that's where they launched the book.
I'm jealous.
For those who haven't heard about it, I mean, think of it as a gigantic time warp back to the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. It's historic racing around a historic track where everything is still as it was back in the 60s. And everybody has to dress in period dress and period clothing. So everybody, even the spectators, 60 or 80,000 of them, they're all dressed like in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And everything is like that. You get your ice cream van is a 1953, whatever, British ice cream van. Your VIP shuttle is a Willys Jeep, and so on and so forth. So everything is in period. It's an absolutely fabulous event for anybody interested in historic motor racing. And the good thing is they really race hard. They've got their GT races driven by, I think this year they had like 7 former Le Mans winners. I mean, guys who won like 2 or 3 years ago. You had Tom Christensen there, you had Neil Yarni there, you had Emanuele Pirro there, and these guys only know one way to drive a car, and that's just as fast as it goes, whether it's an historic car or a modern car. So to take you up on your invitation to have a drink or a meal with anyone, I'd love to meet Lord March, the Duke of Richmond, who organizes it all, because it's his property they organize it on. And I think his passion for motorsports must be immense. There is, of course, the Festival of Speed in July at Goodwood, and then the revival in September. So his passion for motorsports and anything automotive must be immense. So I'd really like to have a drink with him. Could be a cup of tea, but it may also be something stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to get him on this show. I've tried. I'm going to continue. I'm not going to give up, but he's a tough guy to track down. How about a book? Now, we talked about your book, of course, which everybody should purchase a copy of that, and I'll put a link to how you can do that. But is there another book you'd like to recommend that you've enjoyed reading?
Well, for people interested in sports cars, there's 2 biographies I'd really like to recommend. One is John Fitzpatrick's. You mentioned him earlier in connection with the J. David sponsorship. He raced over in the U.S. He's written his biography a few years ago now, and it's really, really well written. It's very interesting. It reads very well, very easy. Plenty of very good pictures in there as well. And the other one is Hurley Haywood's biography, which was launched, I think, last year at Pebble Beach. And that's one of the very best biographies I've ever written. It's lavishly illustrated. It goes into detail. It talks about personal things he'd never talked about before. It's a big book, and it's a high-quality print. I don't know whether you can still get it, because I think it pretty much sold out at Pebble Beach and then the following week at Sebring. But if you can get hold of it, it's really worth every dollar you pay for it.
Yes, I had Sean Cridlin, who helped write that book with Hurley. I had both of them on the show. I'd had Hurley on this show before and Sean, but they came back when that book was launched and talked extensively. And I'll put a link to where you can get a copy of that book. I think they're still available, or Sean may be having some new ones printed. But all those books are fantastic, incredible books about people. And of course, Works Porsche 956, The Definitive History, published by Porter Press, and of course written by our guest today, Serge, is also available. And I'll put a link to that as well. All right, we are up to the checkered flag here, and I've got a question for you. Today I'm going to buy you any cool collector car on the planet and park it in your garage. But in order for this to happen, you got to play by my rules, and one of them is you can't sell it to buy a bunch of other toys with, or your own race car. You got to keep it. You got to drive it. No garage queens allowed here. And here's the kicker. It's the only one collector car you can park in your garage. So choose wisely. Well, I don't think that's difficult for me to select or choose from. It would be a Porsche 956 or 962, definitely. Okay, of course. Well, let's narrow this down a little bit, because I want to make sure I get the right car for you. I would imagine there's probably one that kind of stands out for you. I think there are when you think about race cars and back in the day. Is there one in particular? Well, probably one of the latter was chassis 962, so chassis number 011 through 016. They were the most evolved aerodynamically as well as on the engine side. They look spectacular with their double tier wing. I think one of those would do if I'd have to choose, and if I would have the choice, then it would be chassis 011, because that won the very last World Championship race for Porsche in the WSBC back in Dijon in 1989. And that was the 39th World Championship win.
And after that, Porsche didn't win any World Championship races anymore. But that's become, that was at the time quite unexpected, I think, for them to beat Jaguar and Mercedes. But it would definitely be that one then.
So Chassis 011 that's the car, Heinz, and I'm going to mess his name up here, Heinz Jorgen Dahmen. Didn't he convert that to an open top car?
No, no, actually.
Is that a different car I'm thinking of?
Yeah, he bought one of Jochen Dauer's cars, but renumbered it as 009/88D or something. 011 was a car that Norbert Zingel created in 956 and 962s. Further developed after hours because Porsche had officially retired from the WSPC at the end of Le Mans 88. But he was allowed to help out some customer teams, and then Jost was the favorite customer team. And so they worked on the aero and the balance of the car quite a bit, and also on the engine side, fuel consumption figures, getting those right. And that was then driven by Bob Wallach and Frank Jelinski to victory in Dijon, France in 89.
Yes, okay. Now I know what you're talking. Yeah, of course, the great Bob Wallach. So,
yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a car! Nice choice, my friend. You're gonna have some fun with that. Of course, it's gonna be a little tough to drive on the streets, but we're gonna put you on some tracks. That's the place to go.
Well, the lift not too far from Zolder, so where they used to have F1, so just a few miles down the road, so I can put it on a trailer and take it there.
Ah, there you go. That sounds like fun.
Problem solved.
Yeah, problem solved. I've sat in some of those cars. A late friend of mine had a couple old Porsche race cars. Bruce Levin, who ran Bayside, had a couple of those cars and got to sit in his cars at his home and on the track. Never got to drive one, but oh my gosh, just sitting in those cars was just magical. Close your eyes and take a breath and think about what those guys did in those cars. Wow, fantastic. Well, Serge, you have taken us on a great ride. I knew you would. I've really enjoyed getting to know you better. I want to thank you for calling in from Belgium this morning.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Your afternoon. Could you offer us a little parting piece of wisdom or guidance before you rip off down the track in that beautiful Porsche 962?
Well, I think it started again with the quote, the inspirational quote at the beginning. Do it with passion or don't do it at all. I think that's, for many people, I think that's quite important to stay focused and don't waste too much time because, life goes by in a blink sometimes. And, just stay focused, do one thing or don't do it at all and do it with passion.
I love it. Very nice. And what's the best way for our listeners to keep in touch with you and what you're doing?
Basically, on the Porter's Press website, you can contact me through there. For anybody who's interested, people who want to know some more about 956 and 962s, so they can contact me through the Porter Press International website, of which, of course, you put a link on your website. Absolutely. I'll put a link there so you can get your hands on this book and follow along with Serge. I'm going to spell his last name for you. Actually, his first and last name for you. So when you go to the website, you can type in the right thing. Serge, Serge. Last name is Vanbockryck. Serge, thanks for being so generous today with your time and expertise. Thanks for writing this great book. It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I love having it on my shelf. You're welcome. And thanks for sharing your experiences with the Cars Yeah listeners. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you probably at the racetrack. Okay. Thank you for having me. See you soon. You're welcome. Hey, Mark Green here from Cars Yeah. Did you know you can now see me on the Cars Yeah TV show? It's a weekly visit to some of my past Cars Yeah podcast guests, and I take you along for the ride. You go behind the garage door and into their lives, their businesses, and you get to see what makes them successful. With tens of millions of viewers, Cars Yeah TV is making its mark. Cars Yeah TV is available on MAV TV and Lucas Oil Racing TV. You'll find MAV TV on Direct TV, Fubo TV, Fios by Verizon, or you can stream it through Lucas Oil Racing Television online. And they said I only had a face for podcasting.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.